Once upon a time, there was a homeless man who made his home at a bustling bus station. His days were a monotonous cycle of survival, relying on the generosity of strangers to fill his empty stomach. Each morning, he would find a spot near the entrance, his hand outstretched, his eyes pleading with the hurried travelers who passed him by. Some would drop a few coins into his cup, others would offer a piece of food, but most would simply walk past, their faces indifferent, lost in their own worlds. The man had grown accustomed to this life, a life of asking without ever having anything to offer in return. He saw himself as just a beggar, a man with nothing to give, and so he asked for everything he needed. One sunny afternoon, as the station hummed with the noise of arriving and departing buses, a well-dressed businessman strode past. He was tall, his suit was impeccably tailored, and he carried a leather briefcase that spoke of success and importance. The homeless man's eyes lit up. This man, he thought, he must be very wealthy. A small coin from him would be a fortune for me. Gathering his courage, he shuffled forward and positioned himself in the businessman's path, his hand extended, his voice a low murmur, asking for spare change. The businessman stopped, but instead of reaching for his wallet, he looked down at the homeless man with a curious and piercing gaze. "You spend all your days here, asking for money," the businessman said, his voice not unkind but firm. "Tell me, do you ever give anything to anyone?" The question caught the homeless man off guard. He stammered, feeling a pang of embarrassment. "Sir, I am just a homeless man, a beggar. I live by asking. I have nothing, so how can I give anything to others?" The businessman listened, then slowly shook his head. "That is where you are mistaken," he said. "Life is about exchange, about trade. I am a businessman, and I understand the value of giving and receiving. You have no right to ask for something if you're not prepared to give something in return. If you find something you can give me, no matter how small, then I will gladly give you something back." With those words, the businessman turned, walked towards his bus, and was gone, leaving the homeless man standing alone in the crowd, his mind reeling. Those words echoed in the homeless man's head long after the bus had disappeared from sight. "If you can't give anything, you have no right to ask." The sentence played over and over, a relentless loop of thought. He had never considered his life in this way. He had always seen himself as a receiver, a void to be filled by the charity of others. The businessman's perspective was a revelation. It was a simple principle, yet it struck him with the force of a profound truth. "Perhaps that's why I struggle so much," he mused. "Because I only take, I never give." A new determination began to stir within him, a flicker of hope in the darkness of his despair. He decided right then and there that he would change. He would find something to give. But what could he, a man who owned nothing but the ragged clothes on his back, possibly give to others? The question plagued him for days. He sat in his usual spot, but his mind was no longer on the coins dropping into his cup. He was observing, thinking, searching for an answer. He watched the travelers rushing by, their faces etched with stress and anxiety. He saw families struggling with luggage, their children crying. He saw lonely individuals staring blankly out of bus windows. He thought about what these people might need, something that didn't cost money. What could he offer? The question seemed impossible. He had no food to share, no money to lend, no shelter to offer. 2 days passed in this state of deep contemplation, and he felt no closer to a solution. On the third day, as he sat pondering near the station's exit, he noticed a vendor selling newspapers. An idea sparked in his mind, dim at first, then growing brighter. He couldn't afford to buy the newspapers, but what if he could still use them? He approached the vendor after the morning rush and asked if he could take the old, unsold papers from the previous day, the ones that were destined for the trash. The vendor, seeing no harm in it, agreed. The homeless man gathered the stack of old newspapers and returned to his spot. He didn't try to sell them. Instead, he started reading. He read every article, every headline, every piece of local news and world events. He absorbed the information, his mind, long dormant, now buzzing with activity. The next morning, he began his new venture. As people passed by, instead of just asking for money, he offered them a piece of information. "Good morning. Be careful. There's a traffic jam reported on the main bridge," he would say with a smile. To another, he'd offer, "The weather forecast says it will rain this afternoon. You might want to take an umbrella." He shared sports scores with fans, stock market updates with business travelers, and interesting trivia with curious children. He became a walking, talking information hub for the bus station. People were surprised at first. They were used to being asked for money, not being given helpful advice by a homeless man. But soon, they began to appreciate his unique service. They started stopping to chat with him, asking for the day's news or a quick weather update. His cup began to fill up faster than ever before. People were no longer giving out of pity. They were giving out of appreciation. They felt they were receiving something of value in return for their coins. The homeless man's demeanor changed. His shoulders were no longer slumped in defeat. He stood taller, his eyes bright with purpose. He was no longer just a beggar. He was the station's friendly informant. He was contributing, he was giving, and in return, he was receiving. The simple act of sharing information had transformed his reality. He was engaging with people, building relationships, and for the first time in years, he felt a sense of dignity and self-worth. Weeks turned into months, and the man's reputation grew. Regular commuters would greet him by name, saving a few moments of their day to hear his cheerful summary of the news. He saved enough money to buy himself new clothes and proper meals. He even started buying the fresh newspapers himself each morning, turning his small operation into a legitimate enterprise. One day, the same businessman who had given him the life-changing advice passed through the station again. He didn't recognize the clean, well-spoken man who stood confidently sharing news with a small crowd. The man saw the businessman and approached him, a wide smile on his face. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "I don't know if you remember me, but a few months ago, you told me that I had no right to ask if I couldn't give. You told me that life was about trade." The businessman looked at him, puzzled at first, and then a slow dawn of recognition spread across his face. He remembered the beggar from that day. He looked at the man before him now, astounded by the transformation. "I took your advice," the man continued. "I found something to give. I give people information. And you were right. My life has completely changed." He then reached into his pocket, pulled out a few coins, and held them out to the businessman. "This is for you," he said. "A small return on your investment in me." The businessman was deeply moved. He smiled and shook his head, gently pushing the man's hand away. "Keep it," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You have already given me something far more valuable. You have proven that the greatest investment we can make is in the belief that we have something to offer the world. And that's the greatest lesson one can learn." This story shows us that no matter how bad things get, if we have faith and don't give up, a light at the end of the tunnel will always illuminate our path. If you enjoyed this beautiful story and reflection, don't forget to share it with anyone you think might find it useful. Like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any new videos and new reflections for your life. See you in the next video. See you soon.